Cinema zoom lenses have been out of reach for indie filmmakers and videographers pretty much since the beginning of Hollywood. I mean, if you want to shoot on the same lenses as the big guys, you're going to be reaching for the Angenieux. And this is a 40 to 410 millimeter anamorphic zoom lens, and it's going to cost you a whopping $78,000. Ouch. I mean, you could almost pay for your film school tuition on that. Well, let's see what Canon has to offer. And these are all Super 35 coverage, right? No full frame, no micro four thirds. This one's gonna cost you 10 grand. Ouch. Sigma makes more affordable lenses, right? Let's take a look at the Sigma Cine Zooms. 18 to 35 millimeter T2.0, $4,000. Nope, still too much. Let's check out what Fujinon has to offer. These are the 18 to 55s T2.9 coming in at $3,800. Now don't lose hope, guys. We still have one option left, and that is the Pictor Zooms 20 to 55 millimeter T2.8 lens coming in at only $2,289. Now, is this a cinema zoom lens worth getting? Let's find out. We have the 20 to 55 millimeter and the 50 to 125 millimeter, both T2.8. And I'm gonna show you some footage that I got with these lenses in just a second, so stick with me. They have matching gears on them so you can easily swap between the lenses and you don't have to move your follow focus. They also have the same lens coatings on them, so they should match perfectly. These lenses have a constant aperture of T2.8, which means you can keep that nice shallow depth of field from 20 millimeters all the way up to 125 millimeters. And even wide open at T2.8, they look decently sharp. And it's funny because DZO Films actually on their box calls it gentle sharpness, which I think is their way of saying, hey, they don't look overly clinical or digital, which I definitely found to be nice. They actually kind of have an organic, filmic look to them, whereas many other lenses just look clinical and almost too sharp and digital. Let's go ahead and look at the footage that I shot with both these lenses on the Pocket 6K now. Hopefully you enjoyed that footage. We were out running around getting footage of my buddy Jake, just doing some mountain biking, and I thought it was a really great way to put these lenses to the test. For years now, I've been shooting almost exclusively on Cine Prime lenses, and that's for a few different reasons. For one, I love that they have the gears built right into them because I hate using these little rubber gears that you have to wrap around photo stills lenses. Another problem when you use photography zoom lenses is the fact that anytime you zoom in or out, typically that front lens element moves in and out as you zoom. Sometimes, depending on the lens, it can also rotate, which is definitely a problem when you're shooting with a matte box or you're using any sort of filters on the front. But that's not a problem when you're using cinema zoom lenses because as you zoom in and out, all of that happens internally inside the lens housing. It doesn't have to move forward and backwards. Now, that does make the lenses a little bit longer. There are two main things that you need to consider when you're deciding between prime lenses and zoom lenses. And the first one is that primes can almost always get more wide open than zoom lenses, and that's just because of the nature of the way that they are built. So prime lenses like this one can open all the way up to T1.5, so you're getting about 2 more stops of light out of the prime. And because they get more wide open, you're of course going to have a greater shallow depth of field and better low light performance. Prime lenses are also inherently more sharp than zoom lenses. And I've talked about this in a previous video, but it's basically because there are less glass elements that the light has to travel through before it hits the sensor, whereas there's a lot more in here. So they are going to be a little bit sharper. However, to state the obvious, prime lenses are only one focal length. So here I have the 85mm, and if I want to zoom in a little bit or get a little bit wider, I got to swap out to a different lens, and hopefully I have all the prime lenses that I want. But if I have a zoom lens like this one, let's say I go out to 85mm, but whatever I'm shooting needs to be just a teeny bit wider, well, maybe I can just go to 75. Or 70. This is just a fantastic way to fine tune the exact look that you want. I don't have to waste time on set doing a bunch of different lens swaps. These lenses are great for running and gunning, so of course they're gonna work really well for documentaries, weddings, live events, broadcast news, and just so many other things. Now quickly going back to the build quality, all the gears on these turn really smoothly for your iris, your zoom, and the focus throw is nice and smooth at about 300 degrees. And of course there are markings that are really bright and easy to see in yellow across the entire lens. There are 86mm threads here in the front, so if you want to use circular filters, you can do that, or you can use a clamp-on matte box like I've done here. Both of these lenses are parfocal, which is a huge deal because most standard zoom lenses aren't. And what that really means is that if I focus on my subject, say at 20mm, and then I decide to zoom in all the way to 55mm, everything is gonna stay nice and in focus and sharp, whether I'm at 20 or 125mm. Out of the box, the lenses may not be parfocal for your camera, so you may need to add or take away shims to get it just right. And it's awesome that DZO Films in the box has included the shims so that you can do it yourself as a user. And it's not that difficult to do. They've actually made an entire tutorial on how to do it that I'll link down below. The lenses come in both EF and PL mount, which are definitely the most common mounts, and they're actually user interchangeable. So in the box, you have both the EF and PL mounts, and it's pretty easy to do. There's just a couple screws. You can swap it out for whichever mount that you need, and you may need to adjust your shims to get it back to parfocal, but honestly, it's all pretty easy to do. The bokeh is nice and creamy, especially wide open at T2.8. You can see that the bokeh balls are nice and round, but as you get to those outer edges, they do start to distort just a little bit. The lens flaring looks nice and isn't too dramatic. Now, if you want to see much more technical lab tests with these lenses, go check out the video over on CVP's channel. The lenses are definitely heavier than many prime lenses, and they're just as big as photography zoom lenses. For comparison, I have the Tamron 70x200mm here, and you can see that they're almost the same size. Now, the cool thing is I was actually able to get the 20-55mm to balance on my Crane 2S with the Fujifilm X-T4. And I didn't even attempt to get it to balance with the Pocket 6K because it's just so big and heavy on its own, but you may be able to do it with something like the Ronin S2 or the Crane 3S. Honestly, I couldn't really find anything negative to say about these. I think they might be the perfect cinema zoom lenses at this price point. And once you combine them with the Tokina 11-20mm, you have like the perfect trifecta of cinema zoom lenses, all the way from 11 to 125mm, all of them opening up to T2.8 and T2.9, which is just absolutely incredible. And they all look like they match too with this yellow and white lettering. I think this is just the perfect little indie filmmaker cinema zoom lineup. DZO Films did not pay me to say any of this or sponsor this video. They just sent the lenses out for review, and sadly, I actually got to send them back now. But I should be picking up a pair of them in the very near future. And if you're interested, definitely check out the links in the description below. And guys, if you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe right now because I have a ton more videos coming out on shooting, editing, lighting, everything like that, and you don't want to miss it. All right, I'll see you in the next video.